Okay, so we've got Daniel West, the EVP of Strategy and Corporate Development for Savo Group. Daniel's is responsible for strategically defining Savo's growth path, programs, and priorities. And prior to Savo, Daniel held sales management positions at Informatica, HP Software, and Mercury Interactive. And Daniel, again, I'm realizing as I say this is the second time I've introduced you today. All right. So I know by heart that you got your undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of New South Wales.
That's
Yay?
right.
There you go. All right. So let's have some fun with these last two. I present Mr. West, Daniel West.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. And I also thank you for kind of sticking it out into the late afternoon and for showing up for my second slot on the agenda, apparently. It just goes to show how important this session really is. So let me tell you a little bit about kind of what we're here to discuss today, which is this notion of smarter selling. So Savo believes very passionately in this idea, this concept, that there is a better way to sell. We believe that the life of the professional salesperson today is more complex and more difficult today than it has been in recent history, with the disruption to the buying process, the fact that buyers have so much more information today than they've ever had in the past, and the changes that has imposed on the salesperson and on their ability to be effective in their role. We also believe, as a key tenet of this notion of smarter selling, in this concept of an integrated smarter selling environment. And that environment includes investments that organizations have made in marketing and marketing automation and in CRM. And so I'm very pleased to announce that actually last week we completed our partnership agreement with Salesforce.com and are now one of Salesforce's ISV4 solution partners, and something that we're very proud of and very excited to be going into the market with the market leader in CRM and Salesforce automation. So let's get started. So what I'm going to talk about today is this notion of the 5 critical points in the selling system. And so to start with, the challenge that we set out to address is the fact that every organization out there in today's B2B world has a set of growth initiatives upon which they are relying in order to meet their revenue objectives. But ultimately, those growth initiatives, or the success or failure of them, come down to an interaction or a set of interactions between a salesperson and a prospect. And we see in many situations that there is a gap. Harvard Business Review's latest research shows that 70% of these corporate growth initiatives fail. So let's take a look at what's the result of that gap.
Oracle getting hammered today after the company missed profit estimates. The big problem was on the revenue side. Year to date, the stock is just barely in positive territory, while the NASDAQ is up more than 7%. Oracle executives were quick to throw the sales team under the bus. CFO Safra Katz said, quote, "What we really saw was lack of urgency we sometimes see in the sales force as Q3 deals fall into Q4. Well, maybe Q4 is going to be better. Who knows? Since we've been adding literally thousands of new sales reps around the country and the world, the problem was largely with sales execution," said Mr. Katz, "especially with the new reps." That's not very nice.
So as you can see, while it's always nice to take a dig at one of your partner's competitors at an event like this, but you can see that the impact of that sales execution gap is significant. Oracle, on the day that they made that announcement, lost $5 billion in their market capitalization, $5 billion. And their stock has still not recovered to the point it was prior to this issue taking place back in Q2 of this year. So this sales execution gap is responsible for a lot of issues that organizations face today, and this is really what we set out to address. One of the things that we have seen in the market is that over the last couple of decades, organizations have made significant investments in improving the way that they market to their customers, the way that they drive demand and awareness. They've invested in marketing automation systems. They've also invested in systems to help salespeople be more effective in the way that they manage contacts, accounts, opportunities in the form of Salesforce automation and CRM. But at the end of the day, the salesperson still needs to be able to navigate that buying process. And while most organizations have a well-defined standard sales process, how many of you have actually seen, who are in sales, how many of you have actually seen a standard sales process follow that mythical red line? It never occurs, right? It doesn't happen. What happens is things change, organizations change, people move out of their role, an acquisition takes place, and so you have all these different points of intersection where a salesperson has to be able to navigate those kind of green dots on the screen there. They have to be situationally relevant at every point during that buying journey so that they can navigate the complexity in that buying process and continue to deliver value to their prospect and ultimately make that sale. And one of Savo's kind of things that sets us apart is, we've been focused on this emerging discipline of sales enablement for more than a decade. We have, about 2 years ago, invested in a thought leadership organization that has subsequently gone out and surveyed almost 800 executives across sales operations, and marketing to really understand what are the set of disciplines that constitute a sales enablement function. What are the set of activities that an organization really needs to invest in order to drive the effectiveness and efficiency of their sales organization and bridge that gap between sales and marketing. But what these 20,000 data points have also shown us is what are the key business challenges that our buyers, the heads of sales, the heads of marketing, the heads of sales operations, what are the key challenges that those people are trying to address? And we've then taken that insight back and used that to guide our product direction, the way that we go to market, and in particular, the partnerships that we form with other key players in the ecosystem. What it has also allowed us to do is really understand what are the 5 kind of critical points of the selling system where a salesperson has to be as effective as they can possibly be to maximize the chances of converting an opportunity into revenue. And so I'm going to address in a little bit more detail each of these 5 areas. So starting with the lead, we see today that marketing spends a huge amount of dollars on building awareness, generating pipeline for the sales organization. Unfortunately, we also see that about 80% of that pipeline, those leads that they generate, fall out very early in the process. Clearly, that is a challenge that needs to be addressed. From a process perspective, many organizations over the last couple of decades have invested money and time in buying off-the-shelf sales processes and training their sales reps on how to execute those processes effectively. But we can see from this research from IDC that where an organization invests solely in process and in that training, you can expect to see about 50% of their organization is able to achieve quota, whereas if you invest in sales process, technology, and coaching, you have a much greater chance of getting about 90% of your field organization to quota or above. And I don't know about any of you, but I'd certainly like to have 90% of my field organization able to achieve quota on a regular basis. From a meeting perspective, we see from research from Forrester that salespeople only 7% of the time are able to go from a first meeting to a second meeting. 7% of the time. That means that the other 93%, you have a first meeting with a prospect, and that's it, you're done. You didn't engage them, you didn't deliver anything insightful to them, and your chances of getting a second meeting have gone out the window. From a proposal perspective, through this research that we conducted, 78% of companies today are still preparing proposals manually. The proposal stage is one of the most significant elements in the sales process because as you are putting down on paper for the first time your value proposition, the business case, the justification, if the organization that you're selling to believes that that process isn't up to snuff because it looks like a ransom note, because the sales rep has basically cut and paste from multiple documents they've used in the past and delivered that to their prospect, that's probably going to give that prospect pause and it's going to put a delay at best in your sales process. And then finally, we've also seen that only very few organizations take the time to really analyze not just what's happening from a forecast and pipeline perspective, but what is the sales behavior that is leading to the outcomes that they're experiencing and what can they do to course correct and drive change. So I'm going to address each of these items individually and talk a little bit about what Savo is doing to help our customers move forward.
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Davis. This is Ron calling you from the Daily News. How you doing this morning?
It's Davis, and I'm not interested.
Okay, I'm sorry to have bothered you. Have a nice day.
Wait a minute. Wait, that's your pitch? You consider that a sales call?
Well,
You know, I get a call from you guys every Saturday, and it's always the same half-assed attempt. If you guys want to close me, you should sell me.
all right.
All right, start again.
Okay. Hi. This is Ron from the Daily News. How you doing this morning?
What do you want?
It's not what I want, sir. It's what you want.
Ron, now we're talking. All right, what are you selling me?
I'm offering you a subscription to the Daily News at a substantially reduced price. We're trying to reach out to people that have never had home delivery before.
Right, so basically you're saying that everybody else who already has a subscription is getting on this one?
Yeah, I guess so.
All right, well, I can handle that. So tell me, why should I buy your paper? I mean, you know, I mean, why shouldn't I get the Times or the Voice, you know?
Well, the Village Voice is free, sir, so if you want it, you should certainly pick it up. But the Daily News offers you something no other paper can, a real taste of New York. We have the best features, more photographs than any other daily in New York, and we have the most reliable delivery in the city. Now, what do you think?
You know what I think, Ron? I think that was a sales call. Good job, buddy.
So you're going to buy a subscription?
So, hopefully, you know, when your salespeople are reaching out to your prospects, your calls don't go this way. But, you know, one of the things that we see is when you think about the amount of money that your marketing organization has invested in creating campaigns, building pipeline, generating leads, that's a significant amount of dollars and time spent doing that. But now think about what is the effort that has gone into thinking about how does that salesperson who now picks up that lead, what's there for them? What's there for them to actually convert that lead into an opportunity? And we see a situation where, you know, today we've made huge progress in helping organizations to understand the digital journey that their prospects have traversed, you know, as they've gone through this 57% or 60% of the buying process, depending on whether you believe CEB or Gartner or Forrester. But what we haven't done, so you now have a very good idea of, you know, how many times they hit your website, what white papers they downloaded, which webinars did they attend. But none of that information is actionable for a salesperson. None of that information allows that salesperson to really understand what is the hot button that drove that person to trip from a lead into an opportunity that then got flicked over to the sales organization. And so what we have done is basically working with Salesforce is built a solution that allows us to not only understand what that lead was interested in, but also be able to prescribe to them within the lead record the very specific call scripts, coaching guides, competitive battle cards, subject matter experts, coaching tips that they can use to really focus on that lead's hot buttons and do a more effective job at maximizing the conversion of those leads into opportunities, so that you don't have this situation where marketing feels like they've created a lot of pipeline, sales gets these leads, falls back into their same old sales pitch, and marketing ends up feeling like sales don't know how to convert a lead to opportunity. Sales believes that marketing is generating poor leads, and no one is driving to the ultimate outcome, which is more revenue. We've also provided far more visibility into the way not only that these marketing assets are being consumed, but also how effective are they in that selling process. Which marketing assets are actually helping that salesperson to convert that lead into an opportunity. And so by maximizing the opportunity conversion process, you get more leads in the pipeline, and ultimately you can drive more revenue. So from a process perspective, I talked earlier about the fact that when you have a sales process alone, you get 50% of reps at quota. When you have a sales process plus technology and coaching to reinforce it, you end up with 90% of your reps at or above quota. And the challenge today that we see is that from a process perspective, everybody has one, but nobody's very good at actually executing it effectively. 87% of what a sales rep learns in a traditional sales training class is lost within 90 days. It's gone. They've forgotten it. And the reason that you implement a sales process is because you're trying to drive some sort of change in behavior. But if that change in behavior is not sustained, if it's not reinforced, if it's not given to the sales rep where they can use it when they need it in the context of an opportunity that they're working on, then you have very little chance of actually driving that behavior change and achieving the results of a better sales process, which is typically more consistent sales execution and higher revenue and forecast predictability. And so we believe that the way to approach this problem is, number one, to be able to build a process that aligns more effectively to that buying journey and is situationally relevant. But number two, it's how do you prescribe to that salesperson the right content, the right tools, the right subject matter experts, not only in the context of the sales process that they've been trained on, whether it's a commercial off-the-shelf process like a Richardson or a Miller Hyman, or something that the organization has developed internally, but also based on the attributes of the opportunity. Obviously, this then allows you to drive not only a more consistent sales execution, but also a far better understanding of how is that sales behavior actually translating in the field, and are reps doing, what are reps actually doing, not what they tell you they're doing, which is quite often the case. And then again, provide sales management with far greater visibility into what is actually occurring along that buying journey, so that you don't get to the end of a quarter and realize that deals are slipping out of quarter because what the sales rep told you they felt in their gut wasn't actually what was happening from the buyer's perspective. So if we now turn to the meeting, 7% of first meetings today are leading to a second meeting. Why is that? It's mostly because sales reps don't have the time to prepare. If you think about the consolidation that has happened in multiple verticals over the last few decades, many organizations have gone from being one or two product companies where they were serving one or two buyers to companies with very broad portfolios where you now have to sell not only to multiple buyers, but you have to sell to different organizations that care about different things. You have to sell to IT. You have to sell to line of business. You have to sell to the C-suite. And for a sales rep to be prepared to have insightful, valuable conversations with all of those different buyers is a very challenging and complex process.
So what have you two come up with?
Well, we thought about this in a variety of ways, but the basic idea is I would play myself. Go ahead.
I think I can sum up the show for you with one word. Nothing. Nothing? Nothing. What does that mean? The show is about nothing.
Well, it's not about nothing.
No, it's about nothing.
Well, maybe in philosophy, but even nothing is something.
Mr. Dalrymple, your niece is on the phone.
I'll call back. Dalrimpel. Not even close. Is that with a Y? No.
So who thinks that George and Jerry were well prepared for that meeting? Do you think they got a second one? Probably not. This lack of preparation really presents itself in these types of situations. Sales reps go in, they're not prepared, and what happens? They end up falling back on their standard PowerPoint pitch. They fall back into their comfort zone. They start talking to the prospect about their company, about their products, their features, their functions, when what that prospect really wants to hear about is, what is the value to them? What is the value to them in their situation, in their industry, and so on. And they also have to be able to have that conversation with that level of preparedness at both a boardroom, but also, sitting across the table from someone at a Starbucks or a Panera Bread. They have to be able to prepare not only when they're in the office with their laptop, but when they're on the road using their, their tablet or their smartphone. And so, we believe that, in order for a salesperson to be as prepared as possible, you have to have a mechanism for them to compress the amount of time that it takes for them to do things like building a customer-facing presentation, but building that presentation with the best possible set of assets that their organization has built for them. And so here on the screen, you see, an example of our presentation application that basically, within Salesforce allows a sales rep to select, some of the key criteria related to that meeting that they're about to have, make those selections, and then the system will go off and basically bring together all of the slides that are relevant to that particular meeting. The rep then has the ability to move, cut and paste those slides, edit them. Any information relevant to that contact or opportunity that's stored within in CRM is brought over into those slides, so that you're really cutting down the amount of time that the sales rep spends building those materials, and you're also removing any kind of rekeying that they have to do from a data entry perspective. So really trying to leverage all of that information that exists in Salesforce to its maximum value. But also, because your reps are now recognizing that this information is coming out of CRM, they're far more inclined to keep it up to date. They're far more inclined to make it accurate. And so that means that a lot of the data quality issues that you see creep into CRM systems over time begin to diminish. But sales reps also need to be able to have that conversation with that presentation, as I said, on a mobile device. And so here you see a screenshot of the Savo mobile app that allows a marketing organization or a sales enablement organization to proactively push a certain set of assets out to their sales reps' mobile devices. So that if I'm a sales rep, I'm sitting in Panera Bread with a potential customer, and that customer says to me, hey, I saw your CEO announced today that you just launched this new product line. Typically, the sales rep's the last person to know about those sort of things, and they typically don't have the opportunity to read all of those press releases. So now this sales rep's able to open up their iPad and look at the kit that has just been pushed out to them that morning by their marketing organization and say, yeah, Bob, you know what, you're right. Let me tell you a few things quickly while we've got some time about this new product line that we just launched. So now who's the smartest guy in the room? That's what we mean, about this concept of smarter selling. Also gives you the ability through this mobile application to whiteboard. There's a lot of discussion today about the effectiveness of PowerPoint, which I'm standing here using, as a communication tool. But having the ability for a sales rep to be able to stand there or sit there in a meeting and actually whiteboard, or look at a PowerPoint slide and annotate on that slide, take notes, ask questions that prospect has asked them, and immediately send that PowerPoint with those notes on it straight to that prospect while they're still sitting there in the room, so that they go back to their office and they now have a tool that they can use to go around and start selling internally within your organization and taking your message directly to all of those other stakeholders within that organization. And then, of course, having a much better feel for the set of analytics from a marketing perspective, so that marketing understands not only what sales reps are using, but what's working. How are those tools actually working? So from a proposal perspective, I mentioned before that the vast majority of companies that we surveyed through this process, this was about 300 companies, are still preparing proposals manually. Whether it's a sales rep who's responsible for doing it themselves, or whether maybe there's a proposal center, the vast majority of them present manually, or prepare manually, I should say, which means that not only are they wasting a lot of time and effort on this process, when if it's a salesperson, they could be out in the field actually selling, you end up with a situation where your company's best foot isn't necessarily being put forward at a critical stage in that process. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know about you all, but I have certainly received proposals that looked like ransom notes, literally, because they're all in different fonts, different font sizes, and they were clearly something that the salesperson had just cut and paste from different documents, put it into a document, and forwarded off to me with a pricing quote. That's probably not the most effective way to close that deal and present your value proposition. And so what we've done at Savo is again, all accessible through the Salesforce.com environment, is build out a proposal solution that allows a rep to leverage any of that information that already exists within the Salesforce record and build a commercially available proposal using the best pieces of content that their organization has prepared for them, assembling that into a document that now not only saves them a lot of time, but also allows them to present the company's value proposition in the most effective and meaningful way, that allows them to present it in such a way that aligns with the company's brand, and allows them to present it in a very professional way, which leaves a good impression, for the person receiving it, and is now a document that you'd be proud to have forwarded across the organization as people continue to think about their purchase decision. And again, on the analytics side, really getting a much better understanding of how successful these proposals are being, who's using them, when are they using them, et cetera. So in terms of kind of some key takeaways, from a lead perspective, we talked about the ineffectiveness of that lead handoff process today, and how the data that a salesperson is presented with is really not actionable. And so the fix for that is to basically put make that data actionable, give them very specific direction on what topic they should talk about, what tools are available for them to talk about it with, whether that's a call script, a battle card, or what have you, and who can assist them have that right conversation so that they can maximize their chances of converting that lead into an opportunity, and ultimately from an opportunity into revenue. From a process perspective, ensuring that you have a sales process which is something that is delivered in such a way that salespeople can live it, breathe it every day. It's something that is not only exists on a laminate that they carry around with them, but it's in an application, in an integrated environment that's accessible from their CRM system, and presents to them the materials they need in the context of not only the process, but the opportunity on which they're working on based on all of the various attributes of that opportunity. From a meeting perspective, helping salespeople be as prepared as possible to have insightful, situationally relevant conversations with their prospects, so that the prospect sees value in that meeting, and the sales rep can move forward to have a second meeting, and ultimately a third meeting, and a fourth meeting, and a fifth meeting, until they ultimately close that deal. From a proposal perspective, removing the need to reinvent the wheel on a daily basis. Compressing the amount of time that sales reps spend on these non-core selling tasks, so that they can be out in the field doing what they should be doing and what they do best, which is having value-based discussions with prospects and customers that can ultimately result in revenue for your organization. And then finally, having a far better system for really gaining visibility to what's really happening in that sales journey, in that buying journey, and understanding the behavior of your sales organization in a far more granular way than just looking at forecast and pipeline data. So Savo's real focus and mission, as it says here, is to really help sales reps win more deals faster. And the way that we do that, which hopefully I've communicated through the last few minutes here, is really by over the life cycle of a deal, helping a sales rep with the messaging, the content, the sales process and skills reinforcement, and task automation wherever and whenever they are on whatever device they're using, so that they can maximize their performance and ultimately inspire their customers to make a purchase decision. And so at Savo, our whole purpose is around this notion of helping your salespeople to inspire your customers. So thank you very much.
Do we have any questions out there?
One, in your system of preparing a sales presentation or a meeting, have you included culturally relevant information? How you present? You present to Volkswagen, Wolfsburg different than you present to Toyota. And there are certain social things or whatever that you should know ahead of time. Do you do this?
We don't, but you certainly could. I mean, the metrics or the check marks, if you will, or the attributes, could be anything. So it could be, the industry, the verdict, could be the geography. So if geography is an important attribute in your sales process and the way that you interact with your prospects, and there is different information that might be relevant to a salesperson calling on a prospect in Germany, say, versus Switzerland, then that's certainly something that you could select, and it would pull in, it would pull together the right information.
Okay, and the other part, and it's closely related, is different areas. EU business process is different than Pacific Rim. Not detail, but overall general guidance as to this is the cycle of a sale in the EU, this is a cycle of sale in Hong Kong. Do you do that?
Yes, so the Sales Process Pro, which is the solution that I was referring to around the delivery and reinforcement and sustainment of a sales process, is not only role specific, but can also be opportunity specific. So if I am a strategic account manager in the US, I might have one sales process which is presented to me versus a strategic account manager, say, in EMEA, who may have a different sales process because of regional business differences. By the same token, if I'm a strategic account manager in the US and I have an opportunity which is $1 million deal, I might be presented with a sales process which is more complex, has high level of due diligence associated with it, versus if it's a transactional deal for 50K, it might be a different sales process, but for the same salesperson. Any other questions?
No other questions? Okay. Oh, there's some more. There's some more. 1, 2.
No, so we have Savo has a mobile application which is available on the App Store. You can actually download it from the App Store and see a demo of it on your iPad. But basically, within that mobile application, the salesperson has the ability to not only present PowerPoint with all of the animations preserved and so on. So your iPad can actually become a presentation device, but they also have the ability to whiteboard natively straight through that application. So there's nothing more that the salesperson needs than an iPad or a tablet and a license for Savo. And we can talk about that second one later if you like. Any other questions? No? Great.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.